In 2002, the BC government's energy plan restricted BC Hydro from generating new power. At the same time, the government dramatically increased the sale of water licenses for BC's rivers. These licenses cost between $5,000 and $10,000 and last 20 to 40 years. They allow the owner to develop power projects on the river. The result has been a gold rush race to buy up water licenses for rivers by private power producers. Private power producers are calling their developments run-of-the-river hydro and claiming they produce green power. As we face the challenges of climate change, this green label is attractive but misleading. We cannot lose sight of the environmental impacts to fish, wildlife, and wilderness that can accompany these developments.
Located within the Katzie First Nation traditional territory, the spectacularly scenic Upper Pitt River watershed supports an abundance of wilderness species. Grizzly bears, wolverines, black-tailed deer, Roosevelt elk, and mountain goats all live here. Some species at risk make their home in the Upper Pitt, including marbled murrelets, coastal-tailed frogs, and red-legged frogs. But of all species found in the Upper Pitt, it is best known for its wild salmon. It hosts an unusual sockeye population that can live up to 6 years and provides habitat for the largest population of wild coho in the entire Lower Fraser River system. The Upper Pitt is the best place in the region to find ocean-migrating cutthroat and bull trout. One of the Upper Pitt River's more significant and spectacular creeks, Boise Creek, supports a unique hybrid of Dolly Varden and bull trout.
The town of Alvin was in the Upper Pitt there since 1920 and had about 120 residents there at one time. And it was farming at a tourism hotel there for sports fishing back in 1928. The history is that they brought some of the most high-profile people from Vancouver to come sports fishing and hunting. But these days, no road access means there are only a couple dozen full-time residents in the Upper Pitt. There's not a lot of pristine areas around. This is more pristine than most. And what people don't realize is there's nowhere around in BC where you have 5 salmon species on a river, grizzly bears, wolves, elk, mountain goats. It's truly unique. 30 miles as a crow flies from Vancouver. Like, it's just crazy that you're going to come in there and put these run-of-the-river projects. It'll totally devastate this area, and you'll never get it back.
Construction would likely involve logging, dynamite blasting, and road building. It could look much like this private power project on the Ashlew Creek in Squamish, owned by Ledcor Power. However, the Ledcor development is one project on one creek, while Run-of-the-River Incorporated plans for the Upper Pitt involve 8 creeks. Currently, their plans entails a small dam being built on each of the 8 creeks to create a reservoir of water. Run-of-the-river projects like these often require 80 to 95% of the mean annual discharge of the creek be diverted from the reservoir into large pipes. The water then travels downhill in the pipes for several kilometers through logged or blasted areas. The pipes end in powerhouses where the water runs through turbines, generating electricity. Discharge channels eventually deliver the water back into the creek near its mouth. Run-of-the-River Power Incorporated also proposes building a power line corridor through protected wilderness. They want the corridor to go through Pinecone-Burke Provincial Park, a Class A provincial park. Under the Provincial Parks Act, power lines are prohibited. Removing a wilderness section of a provincial park to allow industrial development would set a terrible precedent.
The potential of this project to cause environmental damage is disturbing. It could harm the 8 creeks, the Upper Pitt River, and Pinecone-Burke Provincial Park. If 80 to 95% of the creek's water is diverted into pipes, this will leave little for aquatic species. Less water means less habitat for aquatic insects, and they're the main food for young salmon. Reduced water flow also means less woody debris for salmon habitat downstream. And without water in the creeks, not enough gravel will be gathered for spawning areas. Some of the best wild salmon habitat in the Upper Pitt is at the mouths of these creeks. 5 of 8 of them affected by this project are likely to suffer a direct loss of habitat for ocean-migrating salmon. The surrounding forested areas will also be disturbed when roads, powerhouses, dams, intakes, and pipelines are built. The proposed power line corridor along Steve Creek and through Pinecone-Burke Provincial Park to Squamish goes through a sensitive wetland and identified grizzly bear habitat. Once the power line corridor is constructed, it will encourage ever-increasing off-road vehicle access into this sensitive terrain.
We had one of the run-of-the-river biologists take me to a site and said, this is where we're going to be putting one of our power stations, pointed up the creek and said, there's an impassable barrier, there's no fish above that barrier. And I decided that, okay, well, I'll come back here later and just go up and have a look on my own. So sure enough, I go back up there after the fellow left and brought a fishing rod and caught fish above what he said was an impassable barrier. One of the major problems we're going to have with these projects, they're put on 8 of the most important creeks we have for salmon habitat. And there's going to be huge siltation problems, there'll be slides, there's going to be runoff. There's no possible way that these fish are going to survive in the long term in these creeks if this happens. This is Vancouver's true Wilderness Stanley Park, and it should be left that way.